Hi everyone, welcome back to the messy bench here, and you lot asked for it, so I'm going to do it. We're going to take a look at the magazine out of this N4 today. Straightforward video. This will obviously help you in any terms of maintenance for this magazine. First, you want to get rid of the gas out of this. Now, there is a couple of marks where it's been, used. A lot of people have said that they get an issue where the magazines are loose in the receiver. Now mine is pretty tight. We can test this with a GMP mag as well. My magwell seems to be absolutely perfect in comparison, so no wiggly issues there. Let's get into this thing. We're going to have to empty the gas out of the magazine, so they do hold a fair amount of gas. Once you know your magazine is completely empty, we can continue with taking this thing apart. So push the button on the bottom, very straightforward. That thing will slide off, and we've got two Phillips screw heads there. So we'll get our little Phillips bit, and we're going to remove these two screws on the bottom here. Now, when I had my magazine new out the box, there was one of these screws spare, which was just floating around in the casing. But, as far as I could tell, there was nothing missing anywhere, so I just popped it to one side as a spare. So once you've done that, you'll notice that if I slightly push that button down, it kicks the magazine out from underneath. Now, you can actually get this base plate off, which you just, slightly pry open the casing, and this thing will pop out the bottom. What I'm going to do, just out of ease of use of getting this straight out, is just going to pull it straight out of the bottom like that. So you've got your button for your base plate. Now, to take this part out, we're just going to use a flathead. I think I just popped a flathead in there. Yeah, there we go, popped it out. Because we're going to need that separate, because you'll see the bumper piece at the bottom, which the spring goes into, is connected to this little bottom plate. And if you try to assemble this back together with this still connected to the bottom of the magazine, you're going to have an absolute world of difficulty trying to do that. So two arms will pop off the top there, and you'll see it's a little bit different. So we've actually got like a gas chamber. The Guns modified PMag comes apart very much differently, and we've got the channel, which is actually separate, and we can remove that from the magazine. Feed lips at the top there with your gas router, your valve, your inlet valve. So let's proceed with taking this thing apart. So they are Torx screws on the gas canister itself, but we're just going to pop, I think we're going to pop this pin out on the top here first. So we've got two pins, 1 and 2. So we can pull the follower. Now, you do have to be careful with this because they are spring loaded. Last thing you want is that pinging across the other side of the room, so just be careful of that. We'll take these side screws off. So we've got 1, 2. They are quite flimsy, these little Phillips screws, very small and easy to drop on the floor and never be seen again. So 3 each side. Now, I haven't had the magazine apart past this point, so we will be discovering this together. 1, 2, 3. So will this slide off? Yeah. So then your little channel will slide off. It does have a slight coating of oil on there. Now, me personally, I would clean all that off, because the last thing you want is any type of lubricant or anything like that on your BBs, which then gets onto your hot rubber and which will destroy your, range and accuracy from your hot rubber. So once that's removed, I think we could probably go ahead and, take these Torx bits out and proceed with, splitting the top part from the bottom part. We'll see what size this is. This is a T8. So it's a T8 Torx. And we've got 4 of them, so we've got 2 on each side. Actually quite a short thread on those. and they're not insanely tight. It's probably something that you don't want to over torque as well, you know, to destroy the threads. So maybe a tiniest bit of Loctite on these once you're happy that this is going back together for good will help. So we're going to see if this lever's off, which I imagine it will do. And we just gently remove that there. And we've got actually a really thick rubber piece, which is quite unique. I've never seen that in a magazine before. They're usually pretty thin, or they use O-rings or things like that. And this is actually like a sleeve. We actually have a tube in there. Not sure what that's for. So it was on like so. So you want the magazine feed lip on the side where this kicks out from the bottom. It's pretty self-explanatory anyway, because obviously the channel's going to be attached to the bottom, and it looks like the screw's only going one way, so it is kind of foolproof, but we'll see. I'm going to have a look at what that tube is. Let's take these other torque screws out. And 4 of those. And we'll lever off the bottom. This will probably look very similar to the top. So I'm not actually sure what that's meant to do. That baffles me. It's almost like a copy of the inlet valve extension on a Marui mag, but we don't actually have an inlet valve on the bottom. There's nothing there. So what would be the purpose of that? I'm just trying to see. It looks like it's glued in. I don't know. A stability sort of modification maybe. I'm as baffled as what you guys are. I really couldn't answer that. Anyway, that's how the gas chamber comes apart. So next we're going to look at the top part of the magazine. You'll see this really thick, not thick, wide, you know, chunky rubber seal. You actually see down into there, that's where the valve is. It's a very small amount of space. So we've got pins there for the valve extension piece. Let's see if this will pop out easily enough, or if we're going to have to tap it. I think we have to tap it with a hammer. So a couple of light taps, and that rear pin will come out. And we have to pop this other side out as well. Shouldn't be too difficult. It's pretty loose, it's just overextended into the bench. Let's get something to pull that out with. Some pliers here. So that pin actually sticks out onto the other side. And we'll be able to pull the feed lips off here and the router. And then you can do any sort of maintenance replacement, anything like that. I am working on a set of feed lips for the Marui magazines, and it will be interesting once done if they fit this. So I'm imagining not. It does look slightly different, but we'll wait and see. If we want to go even further with this, we can tap this pin out here. Let's pop this up on something. That one's fairly easy to pop out. And there you have your valve extension. Very simple metal piece there. And then you've got your valve in the bottom. Do I have my valve key handy? Probably not. But we can pull the inlet valve out. Not sure where my outlet valve key is. So, come on. There we go. There's your inlet valve, outlet valve. Let me see if I can find my valve key. Right, I've looked high and low. I've got multiple of these output valve keys because I like to use the AIP ones. I can find this one, I can find the WA type, I just can't find that one. I'm not going to pull that out and damage it using the wrong tool. Just one of those things. I've always got one, but when I require it, it's nowhere to be seen. So it's going to be, you know, a generic output style valve. You know, I don't really think it's going to be so important to, you know, ruin the video if I don't take that out. So putting this thing back together, it's very, very straightforward. Put the feed lips back on with the gas router. We've got 2 pins that go in. One which can't go in too far because it's got like a nail type head, like a wide head on it. And then the following one which you'll just tap flush and it sticks out on the other side. So let's pull this tape off this old hammer. It's a good tip if you're hammering something and you don't have like a soft style hammer, but you do have masking tape. Just wrap the hammer in masking tape and it'll stop you marring up certain surfaces. Always good in a pinch. So 2 pins in, put the valve extension in, and put that pin in to retain that as well. That wasn't too difficult to pull out, that one. Inlet valve, straight in, use a valve tool. You can get away with the inlet valves with a flathead most of the time, but if you do have the proper tool, it's always worth using. And again, it's always worth purchasing some of these. Over the years, I've used the AIP ones, and they've always served me well. They've never worn down. There are various other manufacturers that I've tried over the years, and they've always worn out, especially on the inlet valve tools. This one I've had for when these first came out, I don't know, maybe 10, 12, maybe more years ago. So they really have withstood the test of time. Don't quote me on that age. So we're going to put this back in. I really am not too sure what the purpose of that tube is. If anything, it's just going to limit the amount of gas you can put in, because it's going to bridge that on the bottom. Who knows? Maybe it's to sort of create a bit of empty area in the magazine so it doesn't spit gas out the top. Now, a lot of people say about the MWS magazines, when they do the gas mod, all they seem to do is spit gas out. Now, I've never really experienced that. Now, if you're doing a lot of full auto mag after mag, you're going to experience it. But me personally, I've never had it with the Marine magazines, so I can't tell you further than that. And I've been using them for a long time, so not the most interesting content out there to watch, but just making sure these are in. Be very careful not to cross thread these. What you're screwing them into is not going to be the most resilient to being cross threaded. There's our gas chamber back together. We can test it in this stage. And that's gassed up and it's not leaking, which is nice. Very strong. I mean, I'm not sure what material that is. Some kind of aluminium. The valve extender here, not sure the proper name for that part, but that's steel as well. But this casing is obviously some type of aluminium. With that back together, I'm going to put the feed tube back on. Just pop that back into place. You're going to go back to a Phillips. If you really want to know the size, this is a PH1. You know, if you are going at your own pace and you're doing this, or you're doing some maintenance, perhaps this video's gone live and a substantial period of time has passed and you've found it, and you've had your gun for a while and you're doing some maintenance on it. Hopefully this will be of some use to you. And you know, at any point, just if you're struggling to keep up, just pause the video. I try to always go at like a steady pace. I know I do tend to talk fast. I am quite aware of that. It's just one of them things. But I always try and tend to do it in a pace that can be followed along. Because, I mean, with YouTube now, a lot of people seem to rush through these videos. And there's nothing worse than trying to find a tutorial on something and someone rushes through it and you constantly, you know, skipping back on the video because you've just missed 3 steps in a matter of 5 seconds, you know. So I'll go as slow as I deem is necessary, but again, feel free to pause it. So with that all together, we've got a couple of these arms now. We've got one which has a little peg that sticks out like so, which sits at the back there. And then this one, if I can remember the orientation of these, is it like that? I think it's like that. No, maybe not. Other way around. There we go. So yeah, it goes in like that, and that pin that sticks out, I imagine, is to somehow stop that maybe if it goes too far, but it doesn't look like it can do. Just test them, make sure they count like this, or reference this image here to get them fitted correctly. Once that's back on, I am going to slide this piece in just because it's going to be easier to do while the magazine is in its current state. Now that's on there like that. We're going to slide that all the way in so that we can manipulate the magazine without those arms falling off, and it will help us when we try and put this piece back on. So the button's going to go underneath like so, and then we literally just put in the spring onto the little peg that sits out, and very carefully push down while containing the spring. Let the plate fit over that button there like that, and then we're just going to press it home. It should click in just like that. Be sure to, you know, if you've had this base plate off and it is a loose fit, to hold it while you're doing this, because that could, it's under spring pressure, it could pop off. So as soon as you've got the screws in a couple of threads, it should be absolutely fine. And again, I know I'm repeating myself here, but just, you know, snip it up just enough. In my professional opinion, I feel like I'm in a position where I can say professional opinion because I've done this, you know, as a job for many years. In my professional opinion, this is a very good design of a magazine, for a cheap magazine. Now, these magazines aren't cheap. You know, you're sort of looking around 60, 65-ish. You know, the Hong Kong websites will have them a lot less. But it's not a bad magazine at all. It accepts gas really well. I do like the fill valve there, compared to the bottom, like on a Marui. With the Maruis, you have to have it exactly at the right angle. They do vent Marui mags, which I do like, and you should always fill a Marui mag to the point where the gas starts coming out the top. It's designed that way so that the valve can vent atmosphere as it fills up with the propellant. With these, it's very straightforward, much like a VFC style. You know, you've got your valve at the back, charge it up, and you're good to go. If you've completely emptied a magazine of gas, and this is with any gas blowback, you're going to have atmosphere contained in the magazine. Now, what I always do, there are a few things you can do. So, first of all, you could, when you initially fill it, you can hold down this valve, fill it so it will purge the magazine, and then let go and it will fill up. Or what you could do is just fill the magazine up, and we're just going to keep tapping it. You see how it didn't contain much gas compared to before? So I'm going to try this again. A little bit of gas. Vent the atmosphere. You can see we've got still filling. A lot longer of a gas fill there. And you'll find that as you use the magazine, you'll eventually get rid of all the atmosphere in the mag, The safest way to do this, honestly, is to gas the magazine and just fire it through the gun. Once you've fired it a few times, we can do that now. Dry firing it is absolutely fine. Don't let people tell you that dry firing a gun like this, especially something like this gas blowback or a Marui MWS, is going to damage your gun. It's absolute horseshit, and it's just one of these myths that go around on the internet. People try and scare you. So nothing in the magazine. We're going to hold down the bolt release. Give it a quick burst if you don't want to do it the other way. And then just fill your mag up. And then always keep your magazines gassed. You'll see as I vent more atmosphere out of it, it will take a lot more gas filling it up. And just run your mags. Always keep them gassed up. You get back from a game day and you're concerned that some of them might be completely empty. Maybe the last game you was in of the day, it completely went dry and you just got a click. Always keep your magazines gassed. It will stop them from leaking. Just trust me on that. And it's one of these things that I always run into with the GMP mags. I'll leave them ungassed and then they start leaking. And I did have a video on one of these, on these GMP mags on how to take them apart and do various bits of maintenance and whatsoever. I will be doing another video because mine still tend to leak from the bottom. So I'm going to gasket seal them to make sure they don't leak anymore. So they're really good magazines. They just have a bit of a leaking issue, which is easy to solve. So thanks for tuning this video. It's probably much longer than what it needs to be, but I'm trying to cover all bases here. And that was how to take apart this mag, what you can expect inside. What I will say is if you get yours with your gun and you have no issues with it, just leave it alone. You know, there's no real need to take this apart. Mine was absolutely fine. Everything seemed to be, you know, nicely tightened up within reason. So just leave it as it is. And, you know, if you are using Loctite to keep this stuff together, just be very careful. Use the weaker Loctite, because you probably, if you use anything like red Loctite on those screws, especially those little Phillips ones, you're going to strip them trying to get them off. So once I've got some more information on the new feed lips, again, they're in testing. What I might do is, once I've got a pretty much solid prototype, I might do like a bit of a ask for beta testers. Just allow them to use it. It's probably going to make much more sense. I'll just send a load out and then people can let me know how they got on with them, and we'll do it that way. But thanks very much for tuning in this video. We'll see you in the next one. And from me and Bench, as always, thank you very much for keeping with the content supplied here. The comments in the last one, you know, you guys saying you love all the tech stuff, that's not going to change. Hopefully people didn't get the wrong idea that I was just going to stop doing it and do gameplay instead. That's not my intention. Thanks for tuning in. Me and Bench will see you in the next one.